Him were words left on her mind, as did his on her body. It felt like she was getting suffocated as she used to in her nightmares. The only difference was Deng wasn't the real villain. Every time she closed her eyes, flashes of the past invaded her mind, refusing to let her rest. She tried to focus on her breathing, tried to convince herself that she was safe, that Hinmo couldn't hurt her now, and that she took her Mizo's revenge. But then, out of nowhere, Hinmo's words rang in her ear like a devil's whisper, and his creepy self appeared in front of her eyes, almost making her believe that he was here, in her room, with her. No, 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 she whispered to herself, squeezing her eyes shut as if that could block out the images. Nothing helped, and suddenly it all became too much to bear. She bolted out of the bed, gasping for a breath of relief, and ran into the bathroom. Her hands trembled uncontrollably, and panic clawed at her throat. Her heart raced in her chest as she flung the door open, her breath coming in ragged gasps. Forgetting to turn the lights on, as she wasn't in her right mind, she gripped the edge of the sink and stared at her reflection in the mirror. Her face was pale, her eyes wide with panic, and for a brief moment, she didn't even recognize herself. Her gaze fell on the fresh on her neck, reminding her his mistreat. No, please, no. Her voice cracked as she burst into tears. Wiping her tears harshly, she aggressively shook her head and stumbled into the shower. With a determination to remove every mark off of her body, her hands desperately searched for the shower knob to turn on the shower. Within a few seconds, the bathroom was filled with the sound of rushing water, but even that couldn't drown out her ragged sobs. She stood under the spray of shower, her body trembled as she frantically rubbed her arms and shoulders, as if trying to erase something unseen. Her breath came in sharp, shallow gasps, each one more desperate than the last. Tears mingled with the water streaming down her face, blurring her vision. She screamed while crying, rubbing her neck and arms harshly, making the marks to ooze out. Sudden exhaustion embraced her, making her sink to the floor. I was heading towards her room to check on her as she had been asleep for a long time, and now it's making me worried. But as soon as I entered her room, her horrifying scream was heard from the bathroom. Without thinking about anything else, I burst into the bathroom, my pulse racing and my heart about to explode in my chest at the sound of her cries. My eyes widened in shock at the sight of her breaking down in the shower, a scene so heartbreaking that it made my own chest tight and painful. Why? I immediately ran toward her, wanting to get her out of her misery, wanting to hide her in my embrace, and keep hiding her until her heat melts my cold heart. I reached her as I went inside the spray of shower, soaking myself in her pain, and was about to touch her when she flinched hard and jolted back while crying harder, as if my touch could burn her. Don't, don't touch me, she shouted in dread and sorrow. I froze, my hand hovering in the air, unsure of what to do. My heart shattered at the sight of her so broken, so lost. But I forced myself to stay calm by taking a deep breath before speaking. Ryan, listen to me. I gently spoke as if my tone could break her more. It's okay. You are safe here. Whatever happened, it's over. I'm here with you. She shook her head violently, her sobs growing louder as she continued to scrub her skin. No, it's not over. Whispering to herself, she continued growing harsh on herself. Ryan, stop! His voice broke through her hysteria, fame yet filled with emotions. He knelt in front of her, pulled her closer, ignoring her attempts to push him away, and wrapped his arms around her, allowing them to come in contact. She struggled in his grip at first, her hands still trying to rub away the almost fading marks on her skin, but his embrace was strong, grounding, and after a moment, she collapsed against him, her sobs turning into muffled cries as she buried her face in his chest. He kept stroking her wet hair, while his other hand gently rubbing circles on her back. The moment of silence, broken only with her occasional sobs and the soothing sound of running water, prompted him to think calmly for a moment. Or perhaps it was her embrace that led him to think rationally. What if she was hiding something? Something that would make him regret his past action with her. This doubt gnawed at him, leaving his thought dry. Because if there was a part of him that wanted revenge, then there was a part of him that wanted to ask her calmly, trust her blindly, love her unconditionally, and protect her with his life. And this part terrified him, because he knew once this part took complete control, then there is no turning back. And it started to happen. A sudden push dragged him out of his dilemma, and he looked at her enchanting form. However, before he could lost himself completely in her beauty and lose his control, her painful complaint shook him back to the reality. How dare you? Her scream pierced through the silence like a blade. How dare you comfort me when you don't even believe me? Her broken whisper broke the hard wall around his heart that he had built so carefully. No, I trust you. Tell me. No, you don't. When I told you I didn't hurt, you didn't believe me. Now I won't tell you why I him because I know you won't believe me. She punched his chest by her fist and cried hysterically. I'm not going to explain myself ever again. I won't waste my words on you. I won't tell you the truth. I'm tired. I'm so tired. Think whatever you want. Her screams turned into shattered whispers, and her punches slowed down. Meanwhile, he kept sitting like a statue, bearing her hits and words.